It is officially the end of another year, at least it's the final week of the year, and before we go spend the next 6 or 7 days relaxing with our fams, decompressing before we get back to it, we wanted to share exactly how much money we saved, invested, and spent this year. Now we're gonna have another video coming next week where we talk about our plans for the new year, because there are gonna be changes to our income that we pay ourselves, our budget, goals, and also investment strategy. At least for me, there's a really big change coming that we're gonna talk all about very, very soon. But first, we need to reflect on this past year and everything that's already happened. So to give you a really quick background on us, we're a couple, me and Dan, who you're gonna see in just a second. And for the last 2 years and 4 months now, so since September 2021, we've been self-employed. So we post personal finance content online, like this video you're seeing right now, and we run our own business. Obviously, with being self-employed, there's been lots of changes to our income, to our money situation overall. In the past, when we had like previous corporate jobs, stable paychecks, consistent raises, things like that, it was a little more linear. And for us now, it's been a lot more all over the place. So to give you kind of the setup that we've had this year, at the very beginning of the year, back in January, we were paying ourselves out $2,036 a month. And to clarify that, that's how much we paid ourselves out each. So our business revenue is different than that, but we pay ourselves out a specific amount every month, and that's what we were at the very beginning of the year. So our main money goals that we wanted to hit for the year were to invest $1,000 a month each. We also wanted to increase our salaries so that we could actually afford to invest that much. Obviously, it's hard to invest $1,000 a month when you're making or giving yourself $2,000. Our fixed expenses are already a big chunk of that, right? So 2 goals: invest $1,000 a month, increase our salaries so we could do that. We also wanted to actually track our spending even more closely per month than we had in the past and stick to our budget. That's a big one. On top of that, for me personally, I wanted to max out my TFSA. I've been investing for I think about 5 years now, and I did the math a little bit at the beginning of the year and I figured it might be possible. So we'll talk about if I hit that or not. I wanted to max that out. On Dennis's side, he wanted to hit $30,000 in savings. So that was his goal. And then we also wanted to actually spend a little money on travel this year and book a trip. So that was also a money goal for us, but on the spending side of things. Okay, so now that we have that out of the way, let's actually go through how much we did spend, save, and invest. We're gonna see if we hit all those different goals. Basically, we're gonna get into all of the results.
So like Steph just said, we started off last year paying ourselves out only $2,036 a month each. And now the year before that was actually our first year being fully self-employed. So we decided to keep our salaries relatively low because we didn't want to be spending too much money. But at a certain point in time, we actually got to a point where after assessing our first full calendar year in business, we realized that we were actually comfortable bumping that up to just over $3,000 a month. So I believe we made that switch as of March of this year, which as you can imagine was a huge check mark for goal number 1. But with us earning that additional $1,000 a month, it actually allowed us to start being able to consistently invest $1,000 a month for the entire year, which as you can imagine again, is a huge check mark for goal number 2. Now, us meeting that goal is great, but in some months, we're actually able to invest a little bit extra, which is also amazing. We're actually gonna use Steph's investment account as an example here because you guys know that we've been sharing her journey literally since the beginning of this channel. And yeah, basically at the start of this year, her investment account was sitting at about $34,750. And at the end, so literally at the time that we're making this video, it's sitting at $55,000. So basically throughout the year, Steph invested $19,000, which is basically a combination of her investing $1,000 a month and a little bit extra coming from her high interest savings account. Now, the reason she did that, the additional piece at least, was because she wanted to prioritize investing versus saving. I personally invested $18,000 this year, so pretty close, so pretty much the same amount, but that was me actually prioritizing growing that account this year as well.
I'm actually pretty excited about how much I contributed to my investments this year, and I also will be hitting my goal of maxing out my TFSA, which is extremely exciting. I'm super happy about that, and I actually want to explain it a little bit more. So in Canada, we have what's called a tax-free savings account, or the TFSA. Basically, it's a tax advantage investment account. Now, because you get tax benefits for using it, there's only a certain amount that you can contribute to it. There's a new contribution limit amount set every single year, and the room starts building when you turn 18. So since I'm 27 now, mine's been building up over the last 9 years, and I've kind of been like playing catch up to try and max it out where it's at right now. So at the beginning of the year, I logged into my CRA account. That's where you can go and see how much contribution room you have left. It only does it as of the beginning of the year. So as of January 1st, I'm pretty sure, of this year, I had $30,969.96 left of contribution room. Now, like Dennis just said, I invested $19,000 throughout the year, so I still had $12,000 left to actually max it out. So where does that money come from? How did I hit that so far? Well, on top of our monthly salaries that we said we've made and increased throughout this year, we also pay ourselves out like a year-end bonus. Basically, because we're creators, obviously our income and our revenue for our business fluctuates every single month. It's not like a perfect schedule where we just have money deposited on the first of the month or something. So because of that, we see how much we've made throughout the year and see how much we can afford to give ourselves in like a year-end bonus. So this year we're paying ourselves out an additional $20,000 each. Of that $20,000 that I'm getting, I'm going to put 12,000 of it, or just under, I think it's like 11,000, whatever I said, $900. That's going to go towards maxing my TFSA so I can hit that goal. And then I'm going to save the other 8,000-ish, which we'll talk about more in just a second. Now that was a lot of information and numbers to just throw at you guys, but overall, I'm very, very happy to have maxed out my TFSA. I guess technically I haven't actually contributed that last 12,000 yet, but I will be before the year wraps up. And I'm really excited about that. My investing journey, like I said, it's been like 5-ish years. We've been tracking so much of it on the channel, and that was a big one for me. It feels so nice to have like a completed goal, I guess, on the investment side. A lot of these benchmarks and like things to motivate you are kind of arbitrary, but this is one that I've had in my sights for a while, so it feels really good to have that done, and I'm pretty proud of myself for making it happen as well. Now, I'm gonna, at the beginning of next year, because that contribution limit grows again for every new year, I think it's $7,000 for 2024, I'm gonna focus on re-maxing out my contribution room at the beginning of the year, and then after that, I'm gonna have to move on to a different investment account, right? Because that's the limit I can do in my TFSA. So we're gonna talk all about that in more videos next year, so stay tuned to see what I switch to after remaxing out my TFSA.
For me, with the year-end bonus that we're paying ourselves, I'm gonna actually be able to hit my goal of having $30,000 in total savings. So the way that's gonna be broken out is that it's gonna be $10,000 in emergency fund savings and then $20,000 in readily accessible cash. So the way that's gonna kind of work out once we actually pay out that bonus is that I'm gonna put $17,000 towards that goal, and then $3,000 is actually gonna go towards investing. So I'm gonna throw that in and invest that money. Now, I'm not quite at the point of maxing out my TFSA, but considering the fact that I literally started off my entire financial journey with me having to pay $50,000 in debt, I'm pretty happy with where I'm at. And, you know, it's kind of interesting because there does sometimes creep in this feeling of like feeling behind, especially when Steph really is hitting this like really huge milestone. But at the same time, it's one of those things where it's like, you know, you have to put things into perspective, right? Like, you know, if I didn't have to pay off that $50,000, like, a lot of that money would be going towards my investments. And I think it also kind of puts things into perspective on, you know, where people kind of start off in life. We all start off in different places, right? Depending on, you know, some of the different advantages that we all have, right? Like if you have, for example, parents that paid your student loans, or if we're talking about student loans, if you have parents that paid for your schooling, right, you're going to start off differently than someone who, you know, had to accrue student loans, right? It's the same thing when we talk about like real estate. If you are someone who has help and your parents are able to like give you that money for a down payment, then you're gonna start off in a different place than someone who's having to save that money from the get-go, right? But you know, it is what it is. You have to have that understanding of like, you know, we all start off in different places. Now, luckily for me and Steph, because we're a couple, you know, our finances are pretty much gonna be joint at some point, right? Like fully joint. So it's not really like me versus her. It's literally, it's on us. Now, the other goal that we definitely did hit was us tracking our spending throughout this entire year. So let's just give ourselves one big check mark for making sure that we got that done. So, you know, I'm gonna give us a slow clap for that one. Now, the thing is that this was actually, it's tough for a lot of people, right? Keeping track of your spending throughout the entire year. We literally were spending, you know, for the most part, every single month, taking a look at all of our transactions and actually like putting them together in our budget. Now, if you haven't seen our previous video that we did where we literally gave the breakdown of all of our expenses and how much we spend in all those different categories, we'll link that video down below for you guys to check out. Now, in terms of actually sticking to our budgets, I don't know, like that's a different story. I can't say that we did horrible on that, but Steph did make sure, she wanted to make sure that I did tell you guys that she definitely overspent in a few different areas. So for example, anything like food related, so like restaurants and things like that, she definitely overspent in those categories. But yeah, I don't know. Do we get a check mark for, you know, tracking our spending? Yes. Do we get a check mark for actually sticking to our budget goals? No, unfortunately.
The last thing I want to touch on is that final goal that we had of doing some traveling this year. So we decided at the beginning of the year that we wanted to go on a big trip of some kind. Now, since starting our YouTube channel, but especially since doing it full time for the last almost 2.5 years, like I was saying, I feel like we've been pretty focused on working, building the business, specifically on saving money and all those different money goals that we've been talking about throughout this video. So in order for us to actually spend money and do something like this, we definitely needed the push. We needed to have it like written out as a goal. But this year we were pretty intentional of planning it out and making it happen. So in September, we went to Spain and Portugal, and we did a video actually breaking down exactly how much we spent on that trip and everything we did, how much it cost, so you can check that out if you want. But we had literally an amazing time at traveling both those two countries for like 16 days. It was a pretty nice long break, really fun for us. And as much as we did relax and take a break and explore it a lot, we also did film it, share it, did that video with you guys. So it was kind of nice seeing how we could spend a little bit of money on things like traveling, but also kind of mix it in with a balance of work as well, which I think was a nice experience for us. So that trip alone definitely checked off that goal of doing some traveling, going on that big trip. But we also had some different unexpected traveling and trips come up this year too, which was not expected, like I just said at the beginning of the year. So work-wise, in March, we went to Ottawa with YouTube Canada, specifically for Canada's Federal Budget Day. That was really awesome. We also went with YouTube Global to Kenya as well. Two really crazy trips and really fun to have that be like specifically associated with work for us, because a lot of the time our work is obviously just literally sitting right here or at the computer. So those are really fun. On top of that, on the personal side, we ended up going to Italy to go to our friend's destination wedding. That was awesome. Again, very unexpected, because we didn't know it was on the radar at the beginning of the year, but we had a really nice time celebrating them. And then last month, our last trip of the year, we went to LA. We specifically did it just for 48 hours to see LeBron play with the Lakers. We're big LeBron fans, could be retiring anytime now, so we decided to do that as well. And then, like I said, we spent 48 hours-ish just kind of exploring, soaking in some warm weather since it's cold here now. So overall, we definitely checked off this goal and then some, and our goal to travel a little bit more was a success.
Okay, so before we wrap things up, I do want to remind you guys that sometimes when you're going over stuff like this, it can often at times feel like this highlight reel where you're literally like, where it's like me listening to everything that we went over, it sounds like we were super successful, we hit all of our goals, and everything was just, you know, super like in the clouds and everything was amazing. The reality of the situation is that with your ups, there's also a lot of downs, right? Like you're gonna have down days, you're gonna have down weeks, you're gonna have literally some years are gonna be super down, right? Like we've literally experienced that ourselves. The year before this last year was definitely not as good as the year that we had this year. So I don't know, I feel like it's just one of those things that we often need to remind ourselves, and it's really important that we take this into consideration, especially when we're seeing what seems to be the highlight reel from creators like ourselves, especially when we're talking about money. I just want to remind you guys that whether you guys hit all of your goals or not, you always have next year, like literally, next year is literally next week. So just keep that in mind. And I also want to, give you guys a big shout out and a big thank you for sticking with us. And, I want to hear what you guys are doing. Like, how did you guys invest this year? How did you spend your money? How did you save your money? Let us know down in the comment box below. And yeah, if you haven't seen any of our previous videos, make sure you do check them out next door. And we will be back, of course, with some good content. We got some super crazy things that we got planned coming up. Let's go.